So I didn't know what your condition would be.
This week?
Yeah, about your leg. So I didn't. We're just going to. I'm going to give away some Amsoil things, but you don't have to hold anything up or do anything. Being your
Convalescing.
being your convalescing. If anybody wants to see it here, I'll give you a quick glimpse of.
Susie's foot.
I can't really do it. Sorry. Can't really give you a quick glimpse of Susie's foot. But anyway, that's what we're going to be with that. And
okay, we're good.
that's what we're going to be with that. And it's 6 o'clock, and we got some good stuff going on. So, okay.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abbate.
All right. We're live.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abbate, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me tonight. Susie, I know you want to see Susie tonight. Susie,
Hi.
how's that foot coming along, babe?
It's good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm convalescing 1 week today. No, 1 week tomorrow. I get stitches out tomorrow.
Stitches out tomorrow,
Yeah.
and that's it. You'll be ready to kick me around the house.
Well, not. You still have another 2 week reprieve.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then we'll just go with that. But we are, of course, all happy that you are feeling better and that your surgery was a success. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors: Motion Pro, Preston Petty Products, Vintco, George Ackerman at the Moto Barn, Replica Motorcycle Park.com, Racer X, Mike Chamberlain, Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing, and of course the International Motocross Museum, and as always, FastGuyStuff.com. Fred Hudgens from Durf's Cycle Shop, always spreading the word about Vintage Motocross Q&A, our newest sponsor. Amsoil, not really new. Actually, he's one of our oldest sponsors, Russell Waters and Amsoil. They've been with us for a while, took a little time off, but they are back now. And in fact, tonight, our random share viewer appreciation prize, our viewer appreciation prize will be compliments or courtesy of Russell Waters and Amsoil. You will get a placemat like this, which is real handy on your workbench when you're taking apart some small parts. You've got the mouse pad, 2 koozies, a pad, a couple of pens, some stickers, and of course, that handsome carrying bag that goes along with all that. So keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. Keep sharing the show, and you will get, sometime a little bit later on in the show, Susie will announce the viewer appreciation prize winner, and we'll be sure to give that away a little bit later on in the show. Hey, did you catch this right here, the podcast? Ben's Vintage Mini Bike Lovers Podcast. It was on Sunday night. It's really good. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it yet, be sure to get over there and check it out. We've also got some other things happening, including stickers that we have for sale for $6, although we give them away here just about every week on Vintage Motocross Q&A. The PayPal Donate Now page is up on our Vintage Motocross Q&A Facebook page as well. Just how I see it returns tonight. And I was wondering how you would see this as well. It was 50 years ago on Monday. 50 years ago on Monday, the greatest stuntman ever, Evel Knievel, attempted to jump the Snake River Canyon in a rather unique vehicle called a Sky Cycle. He did attempt that jump. He did fail. However, he did make history, and here it is 50 years later. Anybody who was a motorcycle enthusiast or certainly a stunt fan, an Evel Knievel fan, will always remember that day. What do you remember about that day with Evel Knievel? I remember being 14 years old and losing bets with friends that I thought he would make it for sure. He did not make it. So, I lost a couple of bets, but I would like to hear your viewpoint and what you saw at that time, what you remember at that time about Evel Knievel. And, there was a motocross race there a couple of years going along with that. That's how he was building that up, was through a motocross race. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. I've got some checks from some people that were at that race that day, some winners, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be great to hear your thoughts and the things that you remember about the day Evel Knievel attempting to jump the Snake River Canyon. Right now, we are going to get right into the next time. Try this segment. It does pertain to removing dowels. Let's get on with it. I'd like to discuss with you dowel pins. Where are they? They're in your clutch cover, usually like this. You'll see them on the end like that. It's there to hold the gasket, but sometimes you have to get them out. Let's get a closer look. Dowel pins can generally be found on clutch covers mostly, although sometimes you will find them on center cases as well. It looks just like this. The purpose of it is to make sure that the cases either align correctly, or when you go to put gaskets on your bike, it holds the gasket in place just like that, so the gasket doesn't shift around when you go to put your screws in. Now, sometimes these little dowel pins will stay inside the case, and if that's the matter, you can use a little tool just like this, and it works like a little slap hammer. They're really easy to use, and I'll give you a little example of exactly how it works. They come in different sizes. You put it over the dowel pin just like this, and what you do is take a little handle and you can tighten them up so it fits snugly around that dowel pin. Once you get it nice and tight on there, and they come right out just like that. The reason why many times these will stick into that hole is because of galvanic corrosion through dissimilar metals. What does that exactly mean in layman's term? This piece is steel, this piece is aluminum or magnesium. The steel will rust, it'll begin to eat into the magnesium or into the aluminum. Much like when your forks rust on your bike, when you run your finger over it, it has that nick. It doesn't necessarily just pit, but it starts to corrode, and that's why sometimes they'll stick in there or stick into the cases of your bike. Now, what if you don't have one of these dowel pin sets? Well, I'm going to give you another little tip right here, and it's got something that you can use at home, guaranteed to have these little tools. This is a punch, and as you can see, it's tapered. You could put that punch right down in that dowel, make sure it's down there good and secure, get a pair of pliers, and gently twist it out, just like this, and it comes right out. Now, why did I do that? Why didn't I just take the pliers and go right over it and pull it out? Because these little dowel pins are very, very thin. What's going to happen is if you go to grab it with a pair of pliers like this and you go to take it out of there, you're definitely going to bend it. It's going to get flattened out. You're not going to be able to get it straightened out again and get it back in that hole. And you need it there in order to keep this cover straight on the bike and also hold your gasket in place. Generally, as I mentioned, these pins usually go in the case first and not in the side cover, but sometimes they come out in the clutch cover as well.
I'm Gary Semix, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A with Joe Abbate.
Vintco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has Airshocks that are an exact duplicate of the original Airshocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new Airshocks are fully rebuildable with Vintco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our Airshocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vintco Airshocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vintco.com to check out the Airshocks and all that Vintco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
Vintco has over 1,000 products in their catalog. Be sure to go see them at Vintco.com. Don't forget, any orders over $200, anything over $200 from Vintco, you will get free priority shipping. Anything over $200. Don't forget, we have Vintage Motocross Q&A stickers that are available for $6 for 2 of them. Scott and Debbie Burnworth have their last race coming up. That's happening on October 5th at Glen Helen Raceway. That is round 3 of the SoCal MX Classic. That is happening on October 5th. Jerry Maddox, as you know, has been bringing us some great videos throughout his racing time throughout the United States this summer. Jerry, a 2-time AMA, I think now 3-time actually, 3-time AMA 125cc expert champion. Well, while he was out on the road, he made this little video for us, and I wanted to share it with you, especially on this rather special day as we remember that tragic day of September 11th, 2001. So let's get a look at what Jerry has to say about this race and also about 9/11.
Oh, today's a special day. I just got back from the Field of Dreams. Super Arman National held in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. I gotta tell you guys, the track was amazing. It rolled through those Pennsylvania hills and those green fields. It was really awesome. But you know, before I talk about that, you know today's a very special day, don't you? There was another field in Pennsylvania that was only about 30 minutes down the road from where we raced on Saturday and Sunday. A much more serious field. Yes, that's the field where Flight 93 crashed because our comrades took over the jet and prevented it from slamming into what they believed would be our nation's capital. I can't say enough about this day. Some of you viewers are probably too young to remember it, and most of us that are viewing it are too old to forget. It just makes me want to fight. But I'm going to take a moment, and I want you to just think of the families of 9/11, all of them, anybody that was affected by it, including yourself, and just take a minute, and we'll come back in just a few minutes, and I'll tell you about the fun side of Pennsylvania. Not necessarily such a bad day. Hold that thought just for a second, but God bless those people from 9/11, and God bless this great country we live in.
I'm Gary Semix, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A with Joe Abbate.
I want to thank Gary for that little outro thing that he has done for us. And of course, Jerry Maddox. I've got part 2 of the Jerry Maddox video coming up a little bit later on in the show. A lot of racing and a lot of fun, and also some racing tips from Gary Semix. In the meantime, what's it worth? This is, of course, brought to you by Full Circle Racing, Susie. Full Circle Racing. See our friend Tom McAllister. This is, of course, this segment of the show where we invite you, the viewers at home, to guess how much you think this bike recently sold for. If you get correctly, and I'm in a good mood tonight, so I'm going to take anything loosely around the price, over or under. Whoever gets closest, you're going to get a couple of Vintage Motocross Q&A stickers, compliments of Susie Creations. Susie Creations, another one of our sponsors we'll be talking about in the very, very near future. But for right now, we're taking a look at a 1981 Mako 490. This is a 488cc engine. It's a 5-speed manual transmission. It says it has some Wheelsmith mods on it as well. This bike was sold on Thursday, April 15th at the Monterey auction. It's a rare example, meticulously restored to race-ready specifications. It has a Wheelsmith Cerakoted cylinder, all NOS Magora controls. Full works engine rebuilt by Fritz Gunther, a name we've heard on this show before. Öhlins suspension by Rick Horvat. Voted the greatest bike of all time by Motocross Action and Dirt Bike Magazine. It was sold on a bill of sale. It has works vented twin air airbox, a Wheelsmith exhaust. It has new stainless steel spokes from WUSA. Also has Metzler MC5 tires on it. This is a really nice looking bike. While you've heard me say it before, I'm not a huge fan of the black rims. It is, a rather stellar 81 490. So considering the hardware looks pretty good on the bike, it does have some Wheelsmith mods on it. The hardware looks good. The gold chain, I don't know. Even though I'm Italian from Jersey, I could do without gold chains. And everything else really looks fine on the bike. So how much do you think this little specimen recently sold for? $4,000, $5,000, $12,000, $13,750. That's $13,750. I want to thank Bill Mashell and the Vintage Motocross Buyers and Sellers Price Guide page for following up with all these great sales that come up over the weeks, and we're able to bring them to you here on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Now, Susie, if you have something for us and you could tell us, 13,750, you know, give me a couple of $100 either way and I'd be thrilled. What do we got? Anybody?
Well, let's see. We got
Come on. What do you got?
13,000. Link Smith at 12.5.
Link Smith at 12.5.
George Ackerman at 14.6. And Bill Nazarov at 14.5. Broward Sapp at 12.325.
All right. Here's what I want. You ready, guys? Here. I'm going to put myself on full screen. Read my lips. Broward Sapp, Bill Nasalrod, and Lee, what was his name? Broward Sapp, Bill Nasalrod,
And
not Ackerman, because he's getting stickers. He's getting a bunch. There was one other person.
not Russell Waters.
No.
No.
Get me your address. Text it to me in a private message. Bill Nasalrod and the other two guys. Broward Sapp, Bill Nazarod, and whoever the third one was. Send me your mailing address. You're all getting stickers. George Ackerman, you were way over, but you're getting stickers anyway. So, yeah, everybody's a winner here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Would you say so?
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle Racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle Racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
Link Smith. Link Smith was the other gentleman who was guessing on the price of that bike. So it's Link Smith, Bill Nasalrod, and Broward Sapp. All three of you, get me your mailing address, and I will get you some stickers, compliments of Vintage Motocross Q&A. You know, we've got some events coming up, and I'm squeezing them in as quickly as I can over throughout the show. Anyway, Rattlers Run Farm. They've got a Vintage Motocross come up there. It is an ARMA event that happens on Saturday, September 14th at 11 a.m. It looks like there's a trial school going on up there as well. So you want to get there early. And yeah, that's happening on September 15th. And that's an ARMA National. I guess there'd be some trials going on there for the ARMA National as well. Okay. So there we have another announcement about that, and we're going to have more coming up a little bit later on. We've got the Here's the Problem segment coming up tonight. Here's the Problem segment is brought to you by Motion Pro. Be sure to get over to Motion Pro. They've got so many great tools and things to make your job easier and more professional. And don't forget, they've had a special only available to Vintage Motocross Q&A viewers. There's still 20% off across the board on everything except custom-made cables. Just put in the code MP9135. That's MP9135 when you check out, and you'll get 20% off. This week's here's the problem question. Comes from my buddy Louie up in Liberty, New York. Louie, a longtime viewer of the show, kind of quiet in the background, but does some nice restorations. He's also a great machinist. Joe, I am betwixt and between buying new spokes and refinishing my originals for a restoration. I value your opinion and welcome your thoughts. Well, Louie, thank you very much. It's nice of you to say. And, you know, we have created almost 5 years now we've been doing this, and we have over 300 videos available. We've got a library of things that we have done, and when people ask questions like this, it's really great that I can go back into that segment, into that section, into that archive, if you would, and I can come up with some really, really good videos that certainly apply to questions that are happening more currently, in fact, from week to week. So, Louis, let's get a look at this video I made about spoke polishing and a few other things, and it'll give you an idea of what you might want to do.
On this week's segment of Next Time Try This, I want to talk to you a little bit about spokes. They hold the whole wheel together, and it's a very, very important part of that element. Now, if you're doing a restoration, you might want to still use the spokes that you've removed from the bike. You don't have to go out and buy new spokes and new nipples. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how to polish those in a few minutes, but one of the first things I want to talk to you about is the condition of the spoke. You may have something that looks like this. Over the years, it does get tarnished, and the nipple gets tarnished as well. It's usually finished in a clear zinc, and nipples on most bikes are clear zinc as well. Sometimes they're in a yellow zinc. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But what you can do is you can polish them, and they'll come out just like this. This is a used spoke that I've polished, the spoke and the nipple. Once you get it like this and it's this clean and this shiny, you can give it to a plater and he can put zinc on it and replate the nipple as well. When you're done, it's going to look just like this, like a brand new spoke. You can see where the yellow zinc is here on the nipple, and the rest of the spoke looks like brand new. What I like to do on my buffer, on the left side wheel, I have something a little rougher where I use with a little black emery compound. Make sure you have on a face mask, some eye protection, and of course gloves. That black emery compound on that little rougher wheel like that really cuts the tarnish and the oxidation off that spoke pretty quickly. You don't have to press too hard on there, just be careful. You want to run it off the edge of the wheel like you see there. Make sure you get the threaded section as well. I move over to the right side of the wheel, and I apply a little brown compound. And this is really going to give me a little bit of a higher luster on the spoke. I make sure I get the flange, and I run it back and forth, and I get a nice clean finish, and it's ready for plating. It almost looks like it was plated at this point. With a small pair of pliers, a needle nose, I do the same thing on the nipple. Some other things that I'd like to talk to you about as well is the removal of the spokes. If you can, go out and purchase some good quality spoke wrenches like these. These are actually available from Motion Pro. This one happens to be one that came in the Yamaha toolkit. But they're nice and thick, and they'll get a real good bite on the spoke when you're going to take it out of the rim. Another thing I'd like to mention is, after so many years, you may have some nipples that are a little difficult to get out. What I like to use is this Amsoil metal protector. It's really great at penetrating the rusty stuff and lubricating things to get them out a whole lot easier. That's available from Amsoil. As you saw over in the polishing video, I used a little pair of needle nose pliers to hold the nipples so we can get those polished up as well. And when I got done, I had a nice clean spoke. Now remember, when you go to talk to your plater, you want to remind him that you want clear zinc on the spoke, but you want yellow zinc on the nipples, if that's what your bike came with. Honda Elsinores did come with yellow nipples, yellow zinc on the nipple, so you may want to get it back from the plater exactly the way it came from the factory. And something else I wanted to point out too is front and rear nipples on your bike may look the same, but if you look closely, they could be a little bit different. This one happens to be from the front. It's a little longer than the one that goes in the back. However, the one that goes in the back is about 7 millimeters at the shank, and the one in the front is only 6.5 millimeter. I'm pointing that out to you in the event you should have to go and buy new nipples. You'll get the correct size. They look the same. Remember, they're different. A couple of other things I want to mention to you while I'm thinking about it. If you're going to save your spokes, but you feel the nipples aren't really worthy of restoring anymore, you can't really go to Buchanan and order nipples separately. The thread pitch is going to be different than on an OEM spoke. So if you're going to order new spokes from Buchanan, order new nipples from there. If you're going to use your old spokes, check what the thread pitch is. If it's an OEM spoke, you're going to have to look for OEM nipples in order for them to be compatible with the spokes when you put the whole thing back together again. So next time, try that and keep all those things in mind when you're going to do that project.
I hope that helped you, Louie. I'm sure it helped some other people in the past. Vintage Motocross Q&A t-shirts are available. They start at just $20. And we don't just have t-shirts. We have long sleeves, short sleeves. I can make you a turtleneck if you want one. We make hoodies, black, white, gray, any color you like. And if you do wear one, you'll look handsome and debonair like Mike McCook from Motorcyclist Illustrated here on Facebook. We've got some other swag too you might get involved with. We've got coffee mugs and hats. We got, of course, the stickers, and we've got the koozies as well. Down in Yantis, Texas, boy, they got an event coming up September 20th and 22nd. They've got a Johnsonville Farm Arma National. This event gets started really, really early. The gates are open on Tuesday, September 17th. So if you are down in Texas and you are thinking about riding a Arma National, you better get ready because it's happening, and it's happening soon. We've got a nice little video coming up here in just a second from, oh, there it is. Okay. Let's hear from Roger DeCosta, shall we?
It's something that in the US we're missing. There is places that have bike collections and all that, but nobody has specialized or nobody has the selection of real factory bikes that were ridden by the top riders as what Terry Good is putting together. And the most impressive thing is how passionate he has been about it. I mean, he has collected these bikes. I think he must have spent the last 20 years or more doing this and spend a fortune on it, I'm sure. And to see his passion still today after 2 years of being delayed and being challenged by the COVID situation, you know, it finally, he was able to pull it off, and it was really cool to see, I don't know, 400 or 500 enthusiasts following word by word, minute by minute, what was happening on the stage, even after we had been there for around the clock pretty much. And it was really cool, and it's something that in the future we can all be proud of it, and especially for Terry. It's like it became his mission for life, you know, and really cool.
I'm Heikki Mikkola. We will be right back.
That was perfect, Heikki. Where is my commercial?
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
The International Motocross Museum is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. Any of your donations or anything you purchase from the International Motocross Museum is 100% completely tax deductible. We are looking to swing the doors open there sometime in mid-2025. I'm also going to be asking Terry Good to be my guest for just a few minutes on an upcoming episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A so he could tell us more about the picnic that's coming up. That's happening on October 19th, just outside of Chicago. We are going to have an event, and I'm going to be out there, and the lovely Susie's going to be out there with me as well. But I'll have Terry come in here in the next couple of weeks, tell you a little bit more about it. Two-stroke extravaganza happens Sunday, October 6th, down there in beautiful Southern California. That happens in Caltecati in Camarillo, California. Right now, we've got the Moto Showcase coming up. Of course, that's brought to you by Preston Petty Products. Be sure to get over to PrestonPettyProducts.com to get all of the lovely plastic parts that they've made throughout the past 50 years. Thank you, Paul Standard and Patty, for keeping that legend alive. Tonight's Moto Showcase comes to us from one of our most popular and talented viewers, Tyler McGregor. Now, I don't really know. Well, I know now that Tyler is actually very talented, but he has been a big supporter of the show, shares it every week. He's up there in Canada, and he's bought shirts and mugs and done so much to help us support the show. Hello, Joe. I know this isn't a motocross bike by any means, but you need a bike for your show. So here's one, a 1976 XL350. This was my first restoration. It took me around 5 years. The bike was my dad's bike. He bought it in 1976. He rode it until 1979. Then something happened with the valves. Anyhow, I sat at my grandma's barn from 1979 to 2016. He always wanted to restore this bike with me, but he passed away before we had a chance. So I knew it was going to be a special project. I wanted to undertake it in his memory. So here it is. Almost everything is original or NOS beside the pipe, muffler, spokes, rear shocks, and side panels. I have the originals still. Every nut and bolt was replated. The motor went off to Wolf Works in Toronto, Ontario. There was a guy there who actually was from Japan that knew these motors like the back of his hand, and he helped rebuild it. My dad did in fact have a new piston on hand with a basket of parts, but the head was missing in action. So I had to source one along with the rings all the way from Poland. Frame had been repainted along with some other odds and ends. It's got the original tank and painted. I painted that. It had one small ding, so it wasn't worth refinishing, but all the other parts were repainted. It was all clean. The original rims were polished and anodized also. I polished the forks. The motor cases were also vapor blasted. Anyway, long story short, it came together and it runs like a top. When I finished the build, it rolled out into the sunlight and I was just hooked. At that time, I had maybe 3 bikes, but if you fast forward 8 years since I've restored this one, I'm about 30 bikes deep. Joe, thank you for showing this bike on Vintage Motocross Q&A. We enjoy the show every week. Thank you and Susie for making the shirts, the stickers, and doing so much more. Well, Tyler, we are very, very grateful to have you as a viewer. And I am absolutely a sucker for a father and son story. It is unfortunate that your dad wasn't alive to see that project come together, but you certainly paid great homage to him. Thank you for sending that into us. And we'll be sure, you know what, we can get you some stickers. I don't know what it is, Tyler, I could get you that you haven't already bought from Vintage Motocross Q&A. But there is something, you let me know, and we'll get it to you. Tyler McGregor, thank you so much. Another big contributor to the show, Jeff Kukoski, the Did You Know segment. This is, of course, the part where Jeff really takes us down, well, I guess you could call it memory lane, so to speak, with some odd things and some really interesting stuff about the history of motocross and even sometimes the gear. And this week it is about Garnet, and I've always wondered how you pronounce that. Nestled in the rolling hills partway between Eastern Alps and the city of Venice, at the top of the Italian boot, lies the town of Costa de Mazere. The picturesque town in the Veneto region of Italy is known for its vegetables, fruits, and high-quality grapes for making wine. The area is also known for industrial businesses that produce furniture, textiles for the fashion industry, as well as fine line leather goods. One of the footwear companies there is known as Garnet. In 1962, a 30-year-old resident and craftsman cobbler, Ernesto Gazzola, who had a reputation for making high-quality shoes, set out on his own to create a business focused on hiking footwear to meet the needs of some local residents. By transporting the first 12 letters of Gazzola and the first 4 letters of Ernesto, he came up with the name Garnet for his new venture. Since its inception, Gazzola was committed to producing simply the best mountain footwear, setting a standard of excellence that would define any of his future endeavors. By the 70s, Garnet expanded its production to include motorcycle boots, leveraging its footwear expertise to deliver superior performance and protection for riders nationwide. Of course, it helped some of the best motocrossers in the world who wore Garnet boots during their careers. Some of them may sound familiar. Garnet's champions were like Heikki Mekala, Johnny O'Mara, Eric Boris, Joel Smets, Mike Kudrowski, Michael Rocco, Mikhail Pichon, Ryan Dungey, Cooper Webb, James Stewart, and Zach Osborne helped elevate the Garnet name to where it is today, known around the globe. During the mid-'80s, Garnet developed its own line of cycling shoes as well. I think we have a picture of those right here, don't we? No, those are all the boots. Anyway, during the mid-'80s, they had the cycling shoes. With focus on performance, comfort, and durability, Garnet shoes adorned the feet of world and Olympic champions and Tour de France cyclists as well. Today, Garnet remains as the only motorcycle boot manufacturer to still completely hand-make their boots by skilled artisans in the factory in northern Italy. That is absolutely a fantastic story, and that's probably because Ernesto Gazzola still runs the company, even though he is in his 90s. Imagine that. The guy is in his 90s, and he's still running that company through Gazzola's relentless pursuit of quality and innovation and impeccable craftsmanship. Garnet is recognized around the world as some of the finest boots on the planet. There's Johnny O'Mara with a pair on right there. And, there is Garnet himself, still busy at the factory and doing all he can to help make those boots just some of the finest in the world, and there's no doubt about that. Those are some of the finest boots in the world. We are going to take a commercial break. We are going to hear from our sponsor, Replica Motorcycle Parts.com. That's who we have here in the studio, and that's who I have on my shirt, and that's what we're going to be running with right now. So just sit tight, and we're going to be back in just a minute with the second part of that Jerry Maddox video as well. But right now, let's hear from our sponsor. You have who, Susie?
A winner for the viewer appreciation.
All right, let's run with the Replica Motorcycle Parts thing, and then we'll be back with the listener appreciation or viewer appreciation prize winner. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. Carries the #1 plate in the US. Let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our air box. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike and stuff are all done by us. And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175s, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else.
All right, there you have it. Paul and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. I can't wait to see Paul. I'll be with him down at the Langston Motorsports Bike Show. That'll be in October. And, of course, I'll be seeing him once again out at the York Swap Meet sometime in January. We know what that date is. It's coming up a little bit later on in the show. Susie,
Yes.
do you have this week's Viewer Appreciation Prize winner?
I do.
Who is it?
Conan White Lisa.
Conan?
Coene White.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Conan White Lisa, you are, it sounds like you're a new viewer to me too, which I'm really, really thrilled to have you here watching the show with us tonight. But you need to get me your address, and I will get you this placemat, a mouse pad, the bag stickers, and some other really, really cool stuff here from our sponsor, Russell Waters and Amsoil. First in synthetic oil since 1973. What else we got coming up here? Oh, we got some more events coming up that I really, really want to tell you about. But you know what? We're going to talk about Paul Parkinson Sr. first and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, being we did have that little commercial coming up. There he is, Paul, at so many events. He's got so many great products. Air boxes for all your CR 125s and 250s, rollers, chain guides, specialty rubber parts for so many different bikes. Here's a real hot item right now. The Kickstarter knuckle for the 1974-1975 Honda CR 125 and 250. Thank you, Paul Parkinson, for being a sponsor of the show, for putting out so many great products for everyone in the vintage motocross community. 9/21 and 9/22, we've got an event coming up at Spring Church, Pennsylvania. This is another ARMA National. There's a grass track, there's a motocross tracks. This happens at Black Hollow Recreation in Spring Church, Pennsylvania. You don't want to miss that, and you don't want to miss this one too. If you're down there in Alabama, you got the Barber Vintage Festival. Absolutely the most incredible mix of cars and motorcycles under one roof. The grounds are absolutely fascinating. This happens October 10th and 13th at the Barber Vintage Festival that happens down there in Alabama. Now, we talked a little while ago, or a little bit earlier, about having the Jerry Maddox video on, and we have a part 2 of the Jerry Maddox video. I'm going to bring that to you right now. And when you see this, well, you know, Jerry finished up with the 9/11 things in the first half of the show. But on this one, he's got some real interesting stuff. And he's got somebody along with him telling him a little bit about riding and some of the other things that he was doing there at the track. Let's get a look at it. Jerry Maddox, and we got Gary Semix in here too. It's going to be really good.
He's watching.
We're back. Hey, and it's just as I promised. We'll tell you about Greensburg, Pennsylvania ARMA National. It was super fantastic. It was laid out on this wonderful farm. The promoters and the families that put this together, they spared no expense, and it was second to none. I loved it. The track rolled through the countryside, and it had some elevation changes in it, and it flowed so nice. The night before it rained really bad and just tacked up the track and just really made it for a perfect day. But the highlight of my day was I got to meet the legendary Gary Semix. Gary was the grand marshal for this race. And Clunker and this whole vintage motocross tour I've been on for 2 years, it has brought me such pleasures in meeting some of the world's greatest. The list is too long to mention on this show, but Gary Semix is the pinnacle of this list. Gary and I visited for about 10 minutes, and we knew we were brothers for life. And for the remainder of the weekend, Gary came in. He worked with me. As most of you know, Gary was not only a legendary motocross racer himself, but he's a world-famous trainer. And to this day has, made hundreds of videotapes and personal trainings, things like that. So Gary goes out and he watches my first moto, to where my son and I were very blessed to do very well. And my son ended up winning. And I stuck my head in the dirt and caught back up to fourth, and Gary got to watch me ride. How cool is it that Gary Semix comes up and says, Jerry, you're a really good rider, but I could make you better. I'll never turn down a free lesson in my entire life. Are you kidding me? Semix? It's the mission of the show. Gary being the grand marshal, they were going to give him a motorcycle to ride and let him do a parade lap so everybody could look at him and say, oh, wow, that's Gary Semix. Gary chose to ride Clunker. And he took a short, slow lap on Clunker. And then he calls me down into the field and says, come here. We're going to do a lesson during this intermission. A private lesson. Yeah, Gary Semix gave me a private lesson. Unbelievable. Took me to a particular corner. He didn't like the way I was doing it. Worked with me for 10, 15 minutes. You can't pay for that kind of stuff. When's the last time you had a superstar walk into your yard and say, hey, I can make you better? It was an amazing trip. That was my highlight of the day. But the racing itself was fantastic. Getting to knowing Gary was even better.
Carry that speed and lean it a little further. Like if you could go faster right here, you wouldn't have the problem so much there coming on the power again.
Got it.
man, I really appreciate you. You know, thank
Well,
you so much
just
for taking the time to work with me.
Some things to think about.
You're an amazing person. Thanks again, Gary.
Thank you,
You're
man.
awesome.
You're an amazing rider.
Well, I'm working on it, but thank you. A star like you, wow. Thank you for allowing us to show this to you guys, and just appreciate the fact that Vintage Motocross is alive and doing fine, thanks to people like myself, Gary Simmons at the shows, and other celebrities. And of course, this show, Vintage Motocross Q&A, is helping tremendous bring attention to vintage motocross. I'm on a crusade this year to thank my sponsors and to bring youth to vintage motocross. And with that said, we're doing a great job. Had 3 new kids racing this weekend. Saw a lot of youth coming in. Just the sport is just continuing to grow and grow and grow. And I believe it's all of us that watch this show, and I believe it's all of us out there at the track that's helping produce these new routes and results. And of course, you can never take away from the great celebrities of vintage motocross. I appreciate you guys, and I hope to see you next time.
Well, thank you, Jerry Maddox, and of course, Gary Simmons, for that, that amazing little video you put together. We really appreciate it. And it's when I first saw it last night, when you sent it late last night, I was really, really impressed, and I couldn't wait to get it on the show today. So once again, thank you, Jerry Maddox and Gary Simmons. And you saw there, Gary Simmons, motocrossschool.com. You can get a hold of Gary if you're looking to take some lessons, and he is something special. He'll get you moving out there on the track. This week in motocross history, brought to you by Racer X. Racer X available on your newsstand now. And I was talking about him a little bit earlier, perhaps the greatest showman and stuntman in history, Robert Craig Knievel, better known as Evel Knievel. What do you remember about Robert Craig Knievel, or Evel Knievel as he was called? Do you remember some things about before he jumped that event? Do you remember the Caesar's Palace thing? So many events that happened, and it was a great time, and so many shows had him on. I remember seeing him on Johnny Carson. Of course, Wide World of Sports was carrying many of his jumps at that time. But what I didn't know was that being the promoter that he was, he put on a motocross for 3 years before the actual Snake River Canyon jump. And here's a little postcard type thing that Evel had printed up and he put out there, said he would jump that canyon when he was damn good and ready. And 50 years ago Monday, he was damn good and ready. And there was a huge motocross there. And Evel really liked the motocross community. And he felt that they weren't really paid what they should have been paid. And right here you could see, I mean, for a one-day race back in 1972, before the jump, obviously, I mean, Jimmy Weiner made $2,300 for a day, took a first place as a 250 Expert Pro. And Brad Lackey, this is an interesting little check here. You can't, I mean, if you look close, you could see on the bottom, Brad Lackey, 1972, $860 for a second place riding a CZ 125. CZ 125 and Weiner. And there were some other checks floating around like this as well. And I'm just going to go over this real quickly with you, because this is what Evel Knievel did for the riders. And you can look this up, or I'll post a picture of it. Evel set the bar very, very high for motocross riders with a $100,000 purse for $25,000 worth of new Harley motorcycles. The 5-day event that was part of the Can Jump weekend turned into more than a party than it was for a race for 5,000 fans. Evel even went and paid for all the beer and then gave the beer away for free. Evel added to the festivities by doing that. He also sponsored a jump and a wheelie contest. Rex Staten was there doing wheelies, standing up on the seat of his bike. And when there was a jump contest mentioned, Kenny Zart had already been out of his race gear, but he jumped on that Taco in loafers, a t-shirt, and jeans, went out and won the jump contest and won another $500. Evel Knievel, an incredible promoter, an incredible stuntman, and certainly will go down in history. He is absolutely unforgettable. Something else that happened this week in motocross history, it was 1981, the biggest game changer in the history of global motocross. The underdog squad of American Honda riders returned to the FIM Trophy and Motocross the Nations after a 2-year absence. Cobbled together with the help of Motocross Action, Dick Miller, and Bell Ray's J.J. Hanfield, along with High Point Racing, Larry Myers, Ann Rita, and John Gregory, Roger DeCoster, and Dave Arnold, the quartet of Johnny O'Mara, Danny Laporte, Donnie Henson, and Chuck's son traveled to Europe and raced against the world's best. None of them were current AMA champions, but the bigger names like Mark Barnett, Brock Glover, Bob Hanna, and Ken Howerton, as well as Mike Bell, all either didn't want to go or they couldn't get their teams to support them. So Honda stepped up, and the rest of the world knew what was happening. It would become history. On Sunday, September 6, 1981, at the bottomless sandpit known as Lommel in Belgium, the 250cc Trophy of the Nations would go off on one of the world's roughest tracks. 1 week later, they would all race 500cc bikes on the hard and slick Bilstein circuit in Germany. No American team had ever won either event, going back to the first team from USA in 1970. In Lommel, the four Americans, all dressed in their matching white JT gear, shocked the global motocross powers by running up front. In the first moto, their lowest finish was an 8th. In the second moto, their lowest finish was 11th. In one fell swoop, the global power balance of motocross shifted from Europe to the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, and an astonishing 13-year win streak would happen after Danny and Donnie, Johnny O'Mara, and Chuck's son brought it home for America on kind of a shoestring budget. I wouldn't call them a ragtag team, that's for sure, but they were not considered America's best at that time. They were the best in the world at that time compared to the results of those races. Congratulations, guys. Barbecue and fundraiser is happening Saturday, September 28th at Crowder Creek Church. Al Roof brought this to my attention, and I will be announcing it up until the day of the event. That will be September 28th. If you're enjoying the show and you'd like to become a Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsor, please get a hold of me, and you could get the same coverage Motion Pro, Racer X, Vintco, Full Circle, and so many more have been with me for almost 5 years now. Look, your pocketbook is a little bit smaller. You can become a show supporter for just $49.95. We'll get you a T-shirt, and we'll get your name on the back board, just like you see here along the bottom. And yeah, we appreciate any support we can get. What else we got happening here, Susie? Oh, the Langston Motorsports Bike Show. This is my favorite event of the year. They fly me in, rent a car. I stay in a palace in Murrieta, and I talk about motorcycles all day long on October 26th. Thank you, Grant and Gerald Langston. This will be my 4th trip down there. I can't wait to be there. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, one of our sponsors, Paul Parkinson Sr., from ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, will be there as well. And I will be at the York Swap Meet, January 12th, 2025. It gets bigger every year. Actually, it doesn't get bigger every year at York. They sell out sooner every year. They sell out sooner every year. It would be wise to get a hold of Bill Nazelrod now to find out if you can get a space at the York Swap Meet that happens in January. Once again, January 12th. So instead of sitting home freezing your cookies off in January, you could be out there making a couple of bucks, having fun with your friends at the York Swap Meet. Susie, baby?
You want to hear some comments about Evil?
I would love to hear some comments about Evel Knievel. You're on camera. Why don't you read them to us?
Eddie Williams says the Evil stunt was all hype and publicity. He didn't even come close. Robbie did much better on his attempt.
Okay, that's whose opinion is that?
Eddie Williams.
Eddie Williams? Okay.
Kurt Evans says the real race was to the bank to cash the checks.
Well, yeah, I guess. Anybody else?
I love that Evil didn't take any crap from anyone. This is from Michael Buckley.
Okay.
Some great stories involving baseball bats, and man amongst them.
Yeah, I mean, on the downside to that, Evil was found guilty of assault and battery, and he did do some time for that. And he also spent recklessly and was quite the drinker. But I'll tell you, nobody will ever forget the name Evel Knievel, that's sure. Yeah, Robbie did some great things. So did Travis Pastrana. They also did not do it on Triumphs with 4 inches of travel or V-twin Harley Davidsons with the same amount of travel, and the suspension era had not even come close. Not taking away anything from the Maddows, the Seth Enslows, or any of those guys, okay? But Evel Knievel, back in the late 50s, early 60s, absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. That wraps it up for this week's Vintage Motocross Q&A. I am going to, Susie, you think Gino would like to join us?
Well, he always does. You know he's looking at.
Well, if you could hobble over to the door and let him in, I'm sure that everyone would love to see him. I want to thank you for helping us out tonight on the show, Susie's as well. You know what? 1 year ago this week, it was Felix. Felix was born. That's Jordan's little boy. Jordan helped me out with the show and made it almost what it is today. Come on. Oh, there you go. So happy birthday to Felix, and happy anniversary to Donnie and Danny Laporte and all those guys. And 50 years ago, Evel Knievel, and it's just a whole lot of history happening at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time.